when you focus on the leading indicators, especially on the sales side, I know that those are the things that are going to produce revenue if I hold other things constant. I'm Zach. I lead the revenue team at Technology Advice. We're a full service B2B media company based in Nashville, and we help tech marketers connect with their ideal customers through our 20 plus technology focused sites, email newsletters, and phone conversations. And my story is actually pretty similar to the company story. So we have a very entrepreneurial background. Our company was actually founded out of our CEO's dorm room
Oh,
in
really?
2006, and we've grown exponentially. So I was lucky enough to join the team in 2013. Actually started as an intern, and they had me doing all kinds of different things. So I was writing content, which wasn't a fit. I actually almost got let go for plagiarizing myself. I thought I could write like the same intro article for multiple topics. But luckily, they put me on the phones doing some business development, and then moved into some account management, and then ultimately building a team. And then today, I manage a team of about 70 that makes up our entire revenue team globally. So through a couple of acquisitions, as well as some great organic growth, we've really grown the team over the last 9 years that I've been here. So today I handle all of revenue, which is sales, client success, sales enablement, revenue operations, and also a team called client delivery. So like I said, a team of 70 spread out around the world now, and definitely comes with some interesting challenges. So grown a lot, done about every role they'll let me do here at TA besides code things and write content, of course. That's where we're at today.
I love that story. That's a great story. So, what was it about the revenue side of the business that interested you the most, I guess?
Yeah, so it actually didn't at all when I started. I
Okay.
actually have a degree in marketing. And so I came aboard as a marketing strategist, which was really an internship
Ah,
role.
okay.
And I had my heart set on being in marketing. And what I realized is that I was just very good at sales. I was very outgoing. I didn't mind making the phone calls. And I sort of just fell into that. I think a lot of people go into their career thinking they want to be in marketing, not want to be in sales with the quotas and the high pressure. You think used car
Yeah.
salesman. But I actually feel like I got the best of both worlds because I'm able to sell marketing programs to marketers, which puts me in a really interesting spot and an interesting perspective. So I think today what makes me fit into revenue, what makes me like it now is it's really a math equation, right? And it's really about
Okay.
putting motions into play. And once you figure out the equation, it's just about moving the pieces to move the needle one way or another.
Awesome. Awesome. So you mentioned there that you're the head of the revenue side of the company. So let's start off with metrics then. What do you really focus on at your core as a revenue function?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I think from a revenue function core, we keep it pretty simple, right? It's about the funnel. So we set revenue targets, then we look at forecasts, and then from there I'm looking at, okay, how many activities do I need to do to set a meeting? How many meetings do we need to have to create an opportunity? What is the size of that opportunity? What is the likelihood of it to close? So we monitor close rates. And then how much pipeline do I actually need to create in order to hit the forecast, hit the target, and make up any gaps that we have? So pretty standard formula that we have here. And I think it really helps drive all of our businesses having those granular conversations and backing into the ultimate target that we have and using the analytics that we have in front of us to make better business decisions.
Okay. So why are those metrics chosen? To keep it simple and to have like a kind of consensus along all revenue teams, or?
Yeah, well, I think the focus over the last 3 years has been more on revenue, and more teams are being gold on revenue. I think when
Yes.
I was, first getting introduced and talking to these marketers, it was about how many MQLs can I bring in, how many top of the funnel leading indicators can I bring in the door. But at the end of the day, if that's not producing revenue down the line, it doesn't matter. And so now we're all holding ourselves accountable to what is the outcome or what are the results of these activities that we're doing in the upper funnel. And so when you focus on the leading indicators, especially on the sales side, I know that those are the things that are going to produce revenue if I hold other things constant. So the reason
Okay.
that we look at those things is I know that if I can control those things, I guess is really what's important, right? I can control how many outreaches we're doing, the
Yes.
quality of my messaging. I can control how well do I present our pitch and our value to the customer, I can't necessarily control if they're going to buy from us or not. That's ultimately up to them, but I can't control those things. So when I look at activities, for example, that's a very controllable metric, and you don't have to be skilled or talented. It's really more of an effort thing. And so you can instill that in your sales reps. If you do nothing else, can you put the effort in to start to building the top of your pipeline? And then you can start to say, okay, if you just get incrementally better at closing or incrementally better at your email open rates or whatever it may be, that's when you start to really see to move the needle. But those baseline metrics are really very controllable and take a lot of the variables around skill and talent out of the mix for your team.
Okay, interesting. So you kind of saying that here that your advice to A's and SDRs would be do the kind of simple things, and then we can gradually get better at the closing, all these different things, the quality of personalization, et cetera.
Absolutely. And I mean, with everybody on your team, you're going to have different metrics. Some people are going to be better at the drift videos and the vidyard videos. Some people are going to have higher response rates. Some people are going to be better at closing. And so I think once you set your baseline for what the minimum should be, then you can go back and say, where does each individual need to improve? So for example, if I've got a sales development rep who is hitting all their activity goals, but they're not setting meetings, that tells me we're either not reaching out to the right people or the email messaging just isn't good and we should tweak that. On the flip side of that, if they're setting all the meetings and they're just not moving the stages of opportunities, we're probably just not relaying the value. So now I can go into tools like Chorus and review their calls and say, where do we miss? And so those metrics are also very constant. So you can sort of judge where the coaching needs to happen based on, okay, I'm hitting this metric, but I'm still not seeing the downline result, and we should be. So what's the missing piece? And it sort of helps guide the coaching opportunities for the entire team.
Interesting. So like when kind of how it seems to me is that you believe in measure metrics that really make the difference, right? And the world of metrics can be extremely noisy and difficult to kind of navigate yourself through. Have you always measured the similar type of tricks for the for the majority of your career, or do you bring new metrics in? If so, what would those be?
Yeah, I think that's really it's really something that we have been exploring over the last 2 years. So when we were a sales team of 3, the metrics were really simple, right? It was activities, it was meetings. How many calls can I make to set a meeting? How many meetings can I set a week? How many of those can we close? And it was literally that every single week. And I think as we've gotten to a sales team, 3, 4, 5x that size, we try to introduce things like pipeline velocity and days in cycle and those types of things. And I think in a lot of ways, we got too complicated with the metrics, and it was too many motions and too many things. And you sort of lost sight of what was really simple, right? And sales, in my mind, when you look at just metrics, is very simple. And so, we've introduced a bunch over the last couple of years, and we'll always continue to evaluate those. But we always come back to what are the core activities and core motions that we need to put in place to be successful. And I think really there's only a few that ultimately matter. Within there's things you can do from a strategic level, but we keep coming back to the simple ones, honestly.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Really interesting point there you made. Kind of, you had very simple metrics at the start. When there's 3 of you, it was like, do this, this, and this. And I imagine there's a lot of communication there as well, right? So how difficult is it to scale? How difficult is it, have you found it, to scale a revenue team and making those metrics scalable as well?
Yeah, I think, there's been some different challenges, and we've had a unique journey. So we've done 2 relatively, I'll call them large acquisitions for us. One doubled the size of the business and doubled the size of our sales team. The next wasn't as incrementally as big, but I think from a culture standpoint was probably the hardest challenge from taking the metrics. We had one team who was a little more experienced, had a lot more strategic accounts, and looked at the way that they monitored their activity and their opportunity creation differently than our team, who was going more after mid-market, high activity. And I think there's value in both. And candidly, it took me a little time to switch my mindset from high activity, new business focus to how do we grow existing accounts? And so I think the biggest challenge that we had was just kind of finding the middle ground between those two teams and the cultures in those two teams, and still holding everyone accountable to moving the business forward, but just realizing there's different things we want to measure. And so, it has been challenging to scale. I think one of the unique challenges that we have in our business is that our growth has outpaced the foundation that we built from a reporting standpoint in a lot of ways. So
Right. Okay.
from 2019 to today, we've grown headcount. So at February of 2019 or 2020, before our first acquisition, we were 50 people. After our first acquisition, we moved to right under 100, and today we sit north of 260 people commercially. And so all that happened in about 2 years. And when you look back and you say, okay, I didn't have a chorus, I didn't have a sales loft.
Yeah.
We were monitoring in Salesforce. And so I think that's been the biggest challenge, is keeping the tools and the engagement and how we're actually tracking to performance and monitoring those up to speed with our revenue growth. We sort of just said, let's grow the revenue and we'll figure out the rest as we move forward. And so now we're really taking a step back and saying, what are the tools and what are the reporting metrics we need to put in place to help us scale? Because I think that's been the biggest challenge to scale the team. Like, the metrics stay the same, the motions stay the same, but how do I monitor and help to cast that long-term vision and make sure we're still pacing to hit the goals that we've set?
Yeah, scaling is super fascinating. I mean, it's like with SaaS, it's just a part of SaaS, right? You need to scale very, very quickly. But if you don't have the processes in place, it's difficult. And I often find that like the hardest part that I've kind of noticed from speaking to people who've scaled companies is keeping that communication. You go from an office of 10 people, you can communicate by calling each other or go and see each other. You go to an office of 100 people the next year, it's very hard. There's a lot of roadblocks there. So like, what are some of the fundamental ways of driving communication between not only people within sales or people in the marketing, but between the two departments and sales ops also as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to your point, it's gotten even more challenging with the pandemic and with this whole work from home culture that we're in now. I think in a lot of ways it's been great for our business, but there's also people on my team that have been working for us for 2-3 years I've never met in person, which is actually
really
pretty wild to think about. Yeah, so we acquired the business right before, maybe 30 days before the pandemic really sent everybody home. And so didn't even get the opportunity to meet some of the team members. So that had its own challenges, but I think we've done a good job as a business incorporating getting to know each other and valuing each other as our core value, and making sure that we get to know everybody. So from a revenue side, we have a series of daily, weekly, and monthly huddles that we go through that involve the entirety of the business. And I think it's probably been one of the biggest reasons why we've been able to communicate effectively and deep into the organization. So we, on a daily basis, I meet with all of my leaders that reported to me, and it's a quick updates. Here's what's going on yesterday. Here's something that's important that's happened today. And here's my top priority today that's going to support our initiatives for this quarter and for this year. Here's what I need the group to know. And it's really quick 15-minute meeting that allows us to move the business forward. And then I can give anything back to my direct reports that they can then distribute down to their teams. And that's across client success, sales enablement, RevOps, really all the organizations within revenue.
Nice.
And then weekly, we have a revenue huddle, and that it is representatives from every single department within the revenue organization. And they come with metrics. So they say, here are the key metrics that I'm monitoring on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and here are the trends and here are the actions I'm taking against it. And so every department gets the opportunity to hear the insight into what other pieces, like what the sales enablement team is struggling with, what the client success team is struggling with. And it provides really nice alignment, because from a sales team, they might say, hey, we're struggling with this one customer, they're unhappy. Maybe the client success didn't hear that. And that's an opportunity for them to make sure they are collaborating and taking notes offline and really just communicating what's important to each side, and especially where they're stuck and how they can help each other move forward to the common goal, ultimately driving to the revenue target.
Brilliant. So to what extent can silo leaders see into each other's funnels? You sound like you have communication that's a key, but what extent can people have that kind of instant access into each other's funnels?
Yeah, I mean, it's right there in front of you in the meeting. So we use a tool called Align to help us manage these huddles.
Right. Okay.
And everyone is responsible for bringing their key KPIs and posting screenshots of the charts and the line graphs and week over week data that they're tracking, and providing a roll up to the group every single week. And so it's as transparent as it can be. Every single manager has line of sight to each rep's quota and the teams that they're managing and how they're tracking towards their goals. And it's really important because it's also helpful to have your peers give you feedback on your blind spots. Hey, why is this chart down here? And maybe you didn't think about it because you're so in the weeds or you're just looking at this every single day. So it helps to provide perspective. So we're very transparent in sharing each other's goals and each other's pipelines and quotas and challenges.
Awesome. You mentioned a tool there, and you seem to realize the importance of having tech. So what other tech have you implemented that has had a really positive impact on driving that communication between revenue teams?
Yeah, so from a tech standpoint, Chorus has been huge for us. So we implemented Chorus about 3 to 4 months ago.
Nice.
And it's, we're still really fully understanding the benefits of it, but just to be able to set key trackers of here's what I'm listening for, being able to provide real-time coaching and comments for the reps and for the client success team, and also being able to share wins. And so that's been really beneficial for us, just leveling up our team and going back to the metrics piece, right? Okay, you're setting all the meetings, what's happening on those calls? So real-time, timely feedback back to the reps on what they could be doing differently, and making sure we're constantly evolving our messaging and communicating not only internally well, but what are we taking from those internal communications and are we able to apply them on our calls with customers and prospects? And so it really helps to close the loop on taking it from internal meetings to external meetings.
Nice. So is Chorus like a call monitor, and you can kind of see the performance of the call?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. So like Chorus, Gong, I think it's like a conversational intelligence tool.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with
They
Gong.
created
Yeah.
a category for it. But there's the few big players in the space are Gong and Chorus. Chorus was recently acquired by ZoomInfo.
Oh, nice. Okay, interesting. So, how often do you kind of review those conversations, or how often do your managers and directors monitor those?
I review them probably more than our reps would like. I'm in the tool, going rogue and providing comments. All of our sales directors and managers and the VPs have KPIs around how many calls that they're providing feedback on and listening to on a weekly basis. And then I think probably the most important piece that we've implemented is a coach the coaches meeting, because we want to make sure that the feedback that we're providing reps is consistent across the team. I wouldn't want one manager saying, do this, and the other manager is directly saying the opposite, right? We want consistency across our messaging. And so I would say the best feedback I got directly from ZoomInfo, who acquired Chorus, was make sure that you have a structure around how you're reviewing these calls. Don't just get the tool and say, go use it however you want. Make sure the manager using it in a consistent way. You're setting activities and you're listening for certain things. And then you're actually bringing snippets of the call. One of the cool features, of course, is that you can say, hey, I only want to listen to this 30 seconds, and I can extract that. And then we can play that in a sales meeting and say, hey, here's what so-and-so did really well, or here's what we could have improved on. And then you collect those snippets and you put it in a coach to coaches meeting. And now monthly or weekly, however you feel like is appropriate, you're actually giving the managers feedback on their feedback so that you provide consistency.
That's great. So it's kind of like a ladder. So the managers are giving reps feedback, managers giving the other managers feedback, also giving directors and VP of sales like yourself. How do you find
down to our CEO? I mean, our CEO is
Really?
in the tool giving feedback. Absolutely.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant. I like that a lot. So how do you find, did you get feedback from, on Chorus specifically, do you get feedback from your reps that this is like really, really good and that it helps them, or are they kind of they're not a fan of people listening onto their calls? How does that implementation
I mean,
work?
I think everybody is a little bit, nobody likes to hear the sound of their own voice, right? I can remember when I first started at Technology Advice, I was sitting, my desk was on the corner of our CEO's desk. It was like an L, right?
Yeah.
And I can remember him being like, hey, let's go to lunch, but we're going to listen to one of your calls in the car on the way. And so
Oh God.
that was a very valuable experience, but I can also remember the anxiety that it gave me. And so I think it's a healthy anxiety that the reps have. And of course you have to sell them on the value of it. But I think that over time, they've seen that I'm actually getting really good coaching, and this is designed to help me. It's not designed to nitpick me or to be more of a negative. It's really designed to help me grow my career, grow my book of business, and to evaluate as a business what's not working with the pitch and give them the tools. So yeah, there was some pushback at first, as you would imagine with anybody, but I think that they've seen the value in getting the feedback instantly. And you want people on the team who want the feedback. If they don't want the feedback, then to me, that's sort of a bigger red flag in conversation. Your reps should want feedback, and you should create a culture where it feels safe to get that feedback and share those calls too.